Yes, team. So this is definitely a bite-sized kind of Zoom, which is only going to be like 5 minutes. But I felt really compelled to do it because there is an extremely common theme that I see amongst everyone who I speak to, not just you guys sometimes, but with regards to like people I know, my family, my friends, and even people that I speak to on social media. And the biggest thing I find is that when things are going really well, people have this knack for performing actions or doing actions that continue to make them feel good. The hard thing is that when a circumstance arises, they get injured, something happens with regards to a circumstance of work, or let's say they have an argument with a loved one, or they go out one night on the weekend and feel like they screwed everything up and go into a poor mindset. It's their ability to be able to bounce back and their ability when things aren't going great to be able to perform actions that make them feel good. Because a lot of the time, when they tend to focus on the negative thoughts that creep in, if you have labeled yourself a negative thinker, you're definitely going to be a negative thinker. It's not a part of you as your being, but it becomes a part of the way your brain fires and wires because the circuits that you've taught your brain to go off become subconscious. So if you imagine every single time that you think a negative thought and you consistently think this over a long period of time, that thought then becomes a belief. Once a belief is thought about and left long enough, it then becomes a part of your subconscious. So subconsciously, you become a negative thinker. Again, it's not a part of your being, it's just what you taught yourself to do. And what we can learn, we can also unlearn. And this is a big thing about becoming a positive thinker or becoming someone who can actually action things in a way that actually benefits them when performing good actions on bad days or good days. So when people say I'm going to get back to it, or I'm going to get back to the gym today, I want to get back to eating well, the biggest issue I find with that is it's not a part of you then because you've not taught yourself for a long enough period for it to become subconscious. And it's the same thing with your thought processes as well. If you've constantly always thought negative thoughts and the worst outcomes, you're going to consistently be led down a path in your brain and like I said on the last Zoom, you've got a nice, smooth, comfortable road to negative thoughts, frustration, anger, and all those negative emotions and feelings. But we've got a dirt track to happiness and excitement and feeling like we are fulfilled. And there's a big problem with that because once we teach ourselves those types of things, it becomes easier to live a life that feels negative because we have taught our bodies and our brains to focus on that. And it's not just fighting against your neural pathways either. It's also fighting against what you've taught your body to do because a habit is really your body and your mind knowing what to do without you having to even think about it. And if we've only taught it negative things, then this only going to imply or it's only going to create a negative outcome. So we actually have to unlearn all those negative things that essentially have always held us back. But we're attached to the emotion and feeling that that negative thing gives us. So whatever negative thought you actually tend to think, more often than not, will generate a feeling and an emotion. And it will also create a chemical reaction. And the chemical reaction will always release adrenaline and serotonin. And when you don't release those chemicals, your body is missing something. It needs to fill a void. So that's why we have coping mechanisms, i.e., food and alcohol and all those good things. And we're being driven to filling a void with dopamine. Now, if you're consistently used to releasing cortisol and adrenaline, when that chemical is missing, you need to fill it. So automatically your body thinks a negative thought if that's what you've taught it to do. And then you basically create the chaos again with inside your body. So we're not just fighting against negative things, we're fighting against our own brains because really and truly, and there's a few people in the group who I spoke to today who have definitely demonstrated through severe kind of circumstantial changes, which are more negative to the outside world, they're actually not looking at it in a negative way, which completely changes the circumstance. It doesn't seem so negative if the person who's going through it doesn't perceive it to be that way. But because we're so used to driving our minds into a place of negativity, when something bad happens, like for me, my accident, It could have really spiraled me into a bad place where I didn't action things. Fortunately enough for me, my natural response and my natural way of being in terms of the actions I'm used to, which is still not a part of my being, but I made it a part of what I do, was I don't feel comfortable here being in a body that can't do, that isn't strong, and I don't feel comfortable eating shit and feeling sorry for myself. So I got straight back to it. Good or bad, obviously probably done too much too soon, but you can see what I mean by with regards to the actions that you taught your subconscious to do. My subconscious is like, I don't want to feel that way. So I'm not doing those things that make me feel like shit. I need to get back to this feeling where I feel positive and I feel good and my body's thriving. The problem is that a lot of people, when they are making those changes, any change will always feel massively uncomfortable because you're teaching your brain to do something completely different, which means you're teaching your body to do something different, to feel different, to have these different emotions. And it's like, no, like this is my comfort. And your body will always want to go back to that. So we're fighting against so many different moving wheels, should I say, or plates. We're trying to spin all these plates at once. But really and truly, we just need to really understand that everything is just going on up here. Okay. And what's going on up here is causing chemical reactions. And those chemical reactions are causing more things to go on up there. So the point of this video today is to understand that what we tend to focus on is what becomes a part of our being, okay? And it's not because that is who you are, it just becomes a part of something that you do. So every single time we think in a certain way, irrespective of whether that's positive or negative, that is ultimately what you're going to do. So when you're looking at bad days, bad things that happen to you, injuries, arguments, stuff at work, any negative circumstance that you deem as negative, the perspective of how we look at these things is ultimately going to dictate what the outcome is or how long it takes you to actually, drive a positive outcome. So if you're struggling at the moment, which you may not be, but if you do hit a struggle, even though things are good, you may want to think twice, about how we process and how we perceive what these problems are currently looking like. And I think the biggest thing is when people say I'm overthinking, no one really says like I'm overthinking positive thoughts. Everyone says I'm overthinking because I'm thinking negatively. But really and truly, we can overthink positive thoughts as well. And you can still be an overthinker, but of positive thoughts. But you wouldn't state that you're an overthinker then. So just think every single time, it always is boiling down to perceptions. And even what I posted on Instagram today about your environment and who you choose to be around and where you choose to be and what environment you put yourself in, all these things, connection as well, have a huge impact on how we think. Okay, so if you surround yourself with people that think quite negatively, play victim to life, want to drink alcohol, want to eat shit food, you're going to become a part of that as well, irrespective of how strong you actually think you are. So let me ask you a question today, okay? How can you change your thinking and how conscious can you be? Because the more conscious we are about our subconscious, the more we can actually change. Hope this helps. Let me know what you think, guys.